Katrina, I hope you saw my email that we started at 6 and not at 5:30.
I did, and I just didn't go back out. So
Yeah, that's fine. I figured as much. I'm like, it's almost easier just to hang out than to leave and come back. So.
I was doing dishes and just,
Right. I'm like multitasking at its finest. It's good.
It's 6.
I know the voice of the Mac computer.
Yeah, it's this new thing called WebEx Assistant, and I just want to like pull it out of the computer and like throw it away. It's the most annoying thing I've ever dealt with.
Especially,
I think I finally figured out how to turn it off though. It took a minute, but I think I'm good.
there's nothing like hearing it at 3 in the morning.
Yeah, it's like every time someone was jumping on a meeting last week, it would like be like WebEx Assistant, and then it would do its little spiel, and I was like, enough already. We get it. You're trying to be friendly and helpful. I did send an email to WebEx, and I was like, that is the most annoying feature you could have added to this.
That's up with Microsoft's paperclip dog.
That's what Peter said. He's like, it's like the paperclip. I'm like, yeah, it's just like, enough. Go away. Don't want your help.
Speaking of the paperclip dog, you saw Bill and Melinda Gates called it quits, and in all their snark, Bloomberg put out a thing and said Bill and Melinda Gates called Control Z on their marriage.
Oh my. Oh my. Yeah, I did see that. Interesting times.
Yep. COVID does things.
Yeah. All right, I actually didn't. Tasha accepted the meeting, but I didn't actually hear from her of whether or not she was joining.
You want me to text her?
She actually got back to me. I think she thought she was replying to everyone, but she just got back to me. This is Karen. And she said it was no problem for her.
Okay.
I'm not, I guess I thought that meant she was joining us.
Okay.
That being said, though, I think if we want to, we should go ahead and get started. I know I've got limited time.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
I just sent her a quick text, Tom. I don't know if you did too, but I agree. Let's get rolling.
Okay. So, yeah, do you want me to start off just by doing a few notes from the email that you sent me now? You want me to go with that?
Yeah, so what Karen, and again, we can do it anyway, but that seemed to work really well, is she actually kind of read each bullet point, discussed as her committee whether you feel like it's appropriate to add, and if so, where, and then just kind of work through all those bullet points.
Okay, well, let's just dive on in. So for human services, the first little bullet point here says to remove facility from the vision statement and just say network. I thought that was a great note. I agree with that. So,
and Tom, I guess if you wanted to speak up if you have any concerns as we go through, but I agree.
Agreed.
Can we make that change right now? I'm actually peeking on Peter's screen while reading the email, so I'm not jumping between screens. Oh, nope. I'm not here.
Yeah, I wasn't doing it in the actual Google Drive just because that's getting really cluttered. So I just have the actual Word document open and I'm making the changes.
Okay, cool. Okay. And then the next one is change the statement to read as follows. This incorporates the recommended strikeout language. Bullet point states maintaining and sustaining a collaborative network of nonprofit and governmental human service providers to provide access to a range of human services such as, however not limited to, food pantry with community garden and greenhouse, winter clothing closet, family resource.
Sorry, I'm going to stop you. I don't actually think it captured the strikeouts because the point was to strike out winter clothing closet.
Yeah, correct. I read that and I'm like, what's going on here? Yeah.
Let's switch gears here. So it's what can you see my screen still? Are you driving with me?
Yes.
So let me get to, sorry, everyone, close your eyes. So it's this.
Yeah, we can see the strikeouts now.
Okay, yeah, I'll be removing this, really removing winter, group childcare to just childcare, and then that last full sentence, just because you talk about education elsewhere.
Okay, so we're gonna pick up.
Can I ask a question since?
Yeah.
May I? I'm curious why you have Family Resource Center and not the Peak to Peak HHS Alliance.
That's a good
Which
question. We
is
had a lot of mixed feedback between
Can I just answer that real quick? Because
Sure.
the Peak to Peak Health and Human Services is an alliance that includes a whole collective of nonprofit and government entities. The Family Resource Center is really talking about sort of a dream of what would be there. And this is just
Yes.
based on the conversations, which I think I've been to every one of these. So
Correct.
they're really two separate things. One is more like an EFA that actually was fully functioning, and what you're talking about is more of a collective of all those nonprofits. So that's at least my understanding. Ari, correct me if I'm wrong.
That is 100% correct. They are two different entities. Sorry, long workday. Both needed, both completely necessary, but with that dream vision, like you're saying, absolutely, we would like a family resource center specifically up here in the mountains. Correct. Thank you for that. Okay. So yes, the Family Resource Center, in addition to affordable support services for home care, medical and non-medical, in-home hospice, child care, instead of group child care, all child care, mediation services for those needing negotiating support, vocational training programs, flourishing schools and education for future generations.
So the recommendation was to take that last line out and just beef up this last comment, so which you'll see as the feedback moves on, to really highlight kind of
Yep.
this.
I do remember that. Thank you. That'll be perfect. Okay.
Tom and Tashna, are you good with those changes?
Yep, 100%.
Cool. Okay, now I'm looking at.
Yes.
No.
Takes me a while.
Suzanne, I can jump into this next one because I'm actually the one who engaged with this person.
Yeah, go for it. All you.
So in essence, he's looking to create a goal that actually does seek to make a facility a physical location. He has a couple pieces that perhaps occupational tax funds can be earmarked for that, or that town can pursue federal grant funding for it. That maybe we could find ways to incentivize for property owners to donate this type of property. So it kind of goes into the specifics of how we would fund that, but in essence, it boils down to really wanting to see a physical location that can house all of health and human services.
Yep.
The question really before you all is that a goal you want to put into here?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I mean, it's a goal. The physical facility or the physical building is a goal. And in terms of having that actually worded, I think we all made the assumption that that is the goal. So it does not, I don't think it really has to be spoken in this document.
Well, I think if you remove the term facility here, though, then yes, it does. Because now you're just saying a network, listing all the networks. And so I think
I thought we agreed on I thought we agreed on a different word than facility. We just changed the word.
So one of the recommendations before you was to strike this out completely. And there has been kind of, I would say, split feedback about whether or not to have this physical location. And I think that's why one person wanted this taken out and another person wanted to see that there was that physical location. And so again, it was a pretty half and half. And so the question just kind of comes back to you all of, do you
I
feel
like the
okay,
idea of the facility. I like that
Yes.
word. It's very much a defined word of there will be a building for this. So yeah, I would love to have facility stay.
Yes, I would too.
I would argue though that you don't really discuss then the physical location in this paragraph. And so maybe Natasha, there is benefit of listing, doesn't have to be how it's worded here, we could change it, but something that lists that that is a desire to have that physical location.
Well, instead of facility, then say location,
Physical location.
physical location.
Do you feel like that doesn't necessarily mean, in terms of the funding, obviously this person got very deep into the specifics and we're not there yet. Good food for thought. I think there were very creative ideas. Do you feel like by changing that to physical location, that does encompass that desire? There's nothing
Yes.
else to add?
Yes. And on a slight side note, Miranda, I know the person that that gave you this feedback, and they are in, how do I say this? They're very depthful in their thinking, in their thought processes. So the things that are outlined here that this person had conveyed to you, I feel are in some fashion or other, we're addressing, not quite as specifically as they do, but we are addressing them.
Yeah, and I think at that point in time, again, the specifics are saved for later. If you feel like by making this change, and I agree that we're integrating that person's desires, I think it's appropriate to kind of stop here and just make that one change.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm a little lost now. Where do we leave out or leave at?
I can keep us moving forward if you want. I have it on my phone. Is that helpful, Ari, since I got most of the feedback? Okay. The other one, when it comes to medical, so really more kind of these two bullet points, there was a desire to kind of change it so that not only is it, the different health insurance types, but also some flexibility of office hours and a desire to discuss more ways to entice providers to want to serve the mountain community.
We've had extensive discussions regarding flexible office hours that meet the needs of the community. And I know it's on the radar for Clinica. I'm not sure if we need to address it more in this document. In terms of enticing providers to serve the mountain community, I know nationally there are programs to entice medical personnel and teachers to rural communities. However, something like they entice them with loan forgiveness and housing, things like that. While that would be wonderful to entice providers to serve the mountain community, I don't have an understanding of the feasibility of that in terms of Nederland.
I don't like the word. I don't think that we should have to put enticing and methods of like that. That's an action step. And I don't think that action step needs to be put right here. I think that can be maybe later on in the works, but I don't think it belongs right here. So that's just my.
Take it out.
Well, you don't have enticing in here. That was just somebody's feedback.
Yeah.
So, and that's okay to take that out.
You could have a different bullet point that says something like attract and retain qualified medical and healthcare providers or something, but make it a separate one. And you're right, you don't have to be specific about enticements, but how can we attract and then retain qualified medical providers up here? Because that is a huge challenge, Atashna. You're absolutely right.
But would that be a conversation though further down the road?
Yes. I don't, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it could be.
But I think the question, I guess to Karen's point, you don't really call something like this out. And so I'm not
Right.
sure there's a spin-off for this type of conversation from any of the current objectives you have. So maybe there is
think we
a
need it
benefit
here.
in listing it separately.
Tom, what are your thoughts? Do you think we need this right here? I'm cool without it, really.
Yeah, I think you're right. We can't get too prescriptive at this stage. Miranda, what do you think about Envision 2035, huh?
Right, yeah. No, I mean, again, we're just giving feedback from what Karen and I kind of gathered. If
Yeah.
you feel it's not appropriate at this stage, you have these notes and you can discuss it at a later time. Same with the hours. You know, I put this in as an example to how you could change this.
Agreed.
But if
Yeah.
you feel like that's not appropriate, we'll remove both, but you know, kind of as a
Right.
team.
Yeah,
If you
it's
think
not
about
bad.
it, that you're trying to stay at the 30,000-foot view for your vision statement, and
It's
then your
hard.
goals and objectives are not the same as your tactics. You know,
Right.
of how,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
so
Belong
just, and I understand there's some gray area and such, but when you start getting into the weeds of the tactics, that really goes beyond the scope of what this exercise was meant to be.
Totally agree.
I'm okay with taking these out for now and leaving them for a later time. That's my
Yes.
opinion.
Okay. So the
Thank
next,
you.
Wait a second. Something just cropped up for me. Establishing, enticing providers, yes, take that out. However, what keeps coming up with feedback and even within our group and private conversations I've had with people is it keeps coming up is a clinic that has flexible office hours to meet the needs of our community.
Again, action step and strategic. That's
So
more
I think that
strategic.
one is very important to keep
But we can keep that in a later on.
in a later one. Okay.
Yeah,
This is
because
not-
you've called that out by saying in your first bullet point under healthcare is provide access. That covers a lot. That
yes.
can mean
Does.
close proximity, that can mean transportation, that can mean affordability, that can mean flexible hours. So you're already,
Okay.
oh yeah, and then that sub bullet point right under that says services can also meet other needs of residents such as late
Yep.
evening weekend hours. So
Yes,
we've actually
okay.
called it out.
That's broad enough. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay,
hold on, I
good.
didn't realize it. So the next one is a quick change, and I think we all agreed upon this at the Human Services Subcommittee meeting, but just to
Mhm.
remove the parentheses here and add needs, so it reads affordable transportation is available for appointments, for both medical and non-medical appointment needs.
Correct.
Yes.
Totally agree.
So the last one is, oh, are you Karen? Oh, I thought I heard you. The last one is a little specific. It's talking about kind of your final point here about family and children's support. Talks about after school activities and pro-social activities. I do feel that's a little specific and not ready for this phase. But it also talks about fostering relationships with schools so there's support for human services needs. Not sure if you feel like that too is at a more pointed level or if it could be integrated into this final bullet point.
I don't like the, well, from what you said, it's too specific about after-school activities, blah, blah, blah. But I really like this line. I think it should be included in that sentence about, foster relationships with schools to support human service needs in the mountains. I like that one. I think that should be included in there.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. That works for me too.
I think we could work that in.
As its own bullet point, Natasha?
No, delete that
Instead
last
of.
one. Peak-to-peak communities will support blah, blah, blah. And instead put the other one in about fostering relationships with the schools.
I like that. Tom, how do you feel?
Totally agree. I
Cool.
think that's spot on.
Yeah, that's a good point, Natasha. I like that.
God, we're just so wonderful. We have the best group.
We really are.
Cranking it out. Okay, so you had four more like really broad feedback. So
This is Karen. I just want to mention that when you talk about foster relationships with schools, I wonder if you should include and childcare providers. And the reason I say that is schools are typically the K through 12. And
Right.
if you're talking about supporting families with children, one of the things we heard loud and clear from several of these meetings is that it's the kids who aren't ready yet to go into the preschool and school system who their folks are having a hard time finding local care or local medical services or whatever. So anyways, just wanted to say that.
I think you're right. Just look at it where the money is flowing under this infrastructure plan. It's going, huge amount is going to pre-kindergarten.
Okay.
You
Yeah, I
have to
like
get-
that. I like that idea.
Yeah.
So there's 4 documents where I didn't feel it was necessary to like copy and paste all the feedback. And so this person is anonymous. They chose to remain anonymous. In general, I would say it really matches what you all are saying. But in essence, she wrote that a facility would be great, but the more urgent need and primary goal should be services. And so she highlights in red kind of all your bullet points here and just basically tells you that they're great goals. Economic feasibility is obviously a challenge, but I think that's a universal issue across all of Envision 2030. No feedback here. Just wanted you to know that this person supports what you have in place.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
So that's one. Let me get the next one. The next one's from Bonnie. Okay. Bear with me. I sort through this. So Bonnie only had one comment, and it was in regards to your vision statement as a whole. And she wrote, support for mental health and emotional health available here in the mountains during these times, which provoke trauma, is so needed. What about training for and times for peer-to-peer counseling? What about free support groups? What about healing art activities?
What do you think, Ari?
Well, healing support groups and things of that nature, I think would be wonderful, but I think that's more of a arts and culture and education. But also, again, there's nothing wrong with collaboration, right? So I think that's a really good point. I just feel like we need to, there's a middle ground. And what else? I'm sorry, if you can,
I'll go back. I guess my feeling on the matter on this was that you kind of already discussed these, whether it be mediation services, you talk about, stress management, parenting classes.
yeah.
I think you have to be careful naming things too much. So it's like, if you're going to do emotional trauma support, are you also doing PTSD, and are you getting trapped in the, now you're listing, which I think was feedback we already got. Let's not, don't list everything under the sun.
Free support groups I'm doing up here, right? And I'm sure others are as well. And stuff for trauma, we have peak to peak mental health professionals to help with those such things. So I think it is one of those things where like we're already doing it. People just don't know we're doing it. It's very much a silo problem and cross communication problem.
Correct.
Yeah.
Said we have addressed it.
Yes.
There's it brings up a point all through this. There's so many times, and I'm on 3 of these, where somebody comes up with what they think is novel, and Karen Garrity says, we're doing that, and here's how we're doing it.
Right, absolutely. And I think that's something that I've noticed with work, with being
That's why I'm here.
it's just we're all reinventing the wheel because not everyone's talking with everybody. There's no cohesion in that kind of mindset.
Miranda, comes back to you. How do you reconcile this in this process?
I think that, so Bonnie was actually on environmental sustainability, and I think she recognized that a lot of her feedback was really meant for the next stage. So I think there's some understanding from her that perhaps we're not there yet to get into listing. And, I'm not sure this group will ever want to, because you always run that risk of who did you leave out? And so it's okay to acknowledge that, yes, that's an important service, but you've also kind of covered it broadly in this document.
Right.
So
Envision, right?
Yes. However, it's also a matter of educating the community at large. And part of that educating the community at large is personal responsibility for finding the information for yourself.
Louder from the people
There were
in the back
some
of the house,
comments that were made by various people, which are things that are already going on and have been going on,
Mhm.
but their lack of looking into it
Yep.
to educate themselves. And there's nothing we can do about that. We cannot, it's impossible for us to.
Atashna, sorry, I think you
Mhm.
brought up a great, did I lose y'all? Can you hear me?
No,
No.
you're still here.
We
Here.
gotcha.
Oh,
Yeah,
Miranda.
Miranda?
Finish, Miranda.
Testing Miranda, 1, 2, 3.
Did I lose y'all? So I was
You
gonna say,
are too.
as Atashna was talking, I was writing this out because I realized I forgot one. And it was, though, to create a robust referral process that serves residents. And so I hear you, Atashna, and I almost think that that could serve as,
Yes.
and Peter and I have talked about it quite a bit in his role of how nice would it be if he just had kind of a place he could go to pull up whatever it is someone was
Right.
calling and being able to properly guide. And same with other providers. I think Ari, you know what's in your wheelhouse, but you don't know what's in other people's. And so
Correct. I mean, again, cross communication, but Atasha.
Yes, and there's always going to be people who say, well, I didn't know that that existed, or I didn't know
Correct.
about that. And, you know, it's impossible to educate everyone. There has to be some personal responsibility. There has to be some personal work done.
Yep.
Tasha, I
You
think it
can't make-
happens, you learn very quickly when your back's against the wall.
Oh,
And then
yeah.
until then, it's all very nice to know.
Yep.
I learned an enormous amount about peak to peak just from what Ari told us at the beginning. But I haven't been in a position to need those services. If I did, I would have probably figured it out.
Yeah.
But you can't know everything. You know what you need to know when you need to know it.
Yes.
And there's also, you couldn't be more correct. And there's also that one little piece that we're all forgetting to mention, and you're all on the dot with this. Some
Mhm.
beings just like to complain.
Yes.
That's true.
And that's okay by me. Go ahead and complain. Do your thing, boo boo. But if we need to, get this out, we can.
Mhm.
Right. Backs against the
Yeah.
wall, you learn. Personal
Yeah.
ability and responsibility, you learn. And then we'll do our share and not worry about what everybody thinks. You know?
Yes, what
I
we're
think what-
talking about
yeah.
here is a clearinghouse of information, a
Yeah.
clearinghouse of information that's very easy to use and and it has to be sustainable, not done a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Do
I
you
think
want to
through
add
this
that
whole
to
process, my
Atashna?
biggest,
Sorry,
No,
sorry.
I think the create a robust referral process is excellent.
Mhm.
Could just leave it at that.
Mhm.
Sorry.
Can I just ask, like, okay, so who's creating that and where does it live? I just have that question, which I know we're not
Such a
supposed
good
to
question.
have all the answers, but what's the vision there?
I think it's
Well, you're
incredible.
going to do it, Karen.
It came from the peak to peak housing and human services groups. So my assumption would then be
Ah,
that it's a collaborative effort between town or really that agency maybe taking the lead and taking what they already have, which is that whole resource booklet, and maybe just expanding on it just to make maybe resources that we provide from town are also included.
that's
My
an
thing is we have time to
interesting
figure it out.
idea.
Time.
It's too bad Katrina dropped off.
However, the
You know?
problem with that is, first of all, the Human Services Alliance is not an agency, so I want to correct you there.
a good point.
Okay,
Good
first
point.
of all, they're not an agency. I was involved with them in the beginning. I was the housing person. For the first 2 years, I put together that Housing and Human Services directory, and it was funded by the Business Connection. It was a lot of work, and every year I would call every place and update the information. It's very labor intensive,
Thank you
and
for doing that.
it is out of date, and it needs to.
Hey, Atashna,
Yeah.
we actually update it every year and we just went through that again this year. So the electronic version as well as the hard copies, they're available at Town Hall and other places. Those are all
Mhm.
up to date. just so you know.
Okay, because
Yeah.
the one that
Nice.
I was looking at was done
Yeah.
about a year or two ago, and
Yeah,
it was out of date.
We're doing it all via email, and then we
Oh,
can
great.
actually go on the document and change it and give new information. So that has changed, just FYI.
Okay,
And
well,
other
that's
details,
it is
I'm
an
not getting caught
excellent
up in the
resource.
It is.
Natasha, I'm also not getting caught up in the details of it. Again,
Yes.
the vision part of it, if we need that strategic planning, we can look into that further. And there's
Okay.
always there's
Yeah.
there's always people wanting to volunteer. There's always cool humans that are willing to step up.
Yeah.
We can
Until
get
they get burnt out. Yes.
yeah, but
I
until
do have
then-
a question here since I came in late and you're speeding through this. What was decided about the added goal about cultivating a local worker? What was decided about that?
So I actually, as you were talking, Natasha, I realized I skipped that one in the referral one. So I do need to take us back
Oh,
to that. There was a goal about cultivating local workers and creating kind of that incentive to be here. I lost the goals. Natasha, do you have that pulled up in front of you by chance?
yes.
Can you read it again to us?
Okay. It says add a goal about cultivating local worker who can serve the communities in need. I'm very opposed to that. I think it should be stricken. That is something that basically what that it would involve would be casework, like intake and assessment for referral, which is something I did for years. And it would be, the town, first of all, does not have a human services department to hire a worker and train them and, and pay them. So that is something that, while it sounds really good, I think the robust referral process would cover something like that without getting into the governmental discriminatory privacy intake and assessment work that human services people do.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought about
Okay.
that.
Sure.
Again, I also feel like that's really a details oriented. I think as people were giving feedback and a lot of people didn't have the presentation to go off of, they were looking at more, thinking we should be more specific. And so again, we all here know that that's not where we're at.
Yes, and even we're confused about it and we still do it.
Right. So, okay, so we won't add that. And I'll tell you then the other three pieces of comment, we're really just concerned that we're not stepping on the toes of the peak-to-peak housing and human services. And so my recommendation, Ari, would be to accept all these changes, send this on to them, Dennis and Katrina, and just ask them to give it a once over and just make sure we're not saying anything that completely contradicts their strategic plan. Does everyone support that, or are there any reasons for doing that?
Yes and no, if I can be.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about that.
I do too.
Yes,
I'm
Natasha, girl, we're all on
concerned
the same
about
page.
that. Yeah, I'm concerned.
Here's my thing. I'm going to be a little rude, and that's okay.
Go for it.
Yeah. Be on the Envision committee. Okay. My thing is, I understand that they have, someone there who is hired has 8 hours to do it. That's it. That's okay. That's a lot of work too. But also, there has to be room for more people to grow and join than just having this kind of being what do I want to say? Not, and I'm on it and I love being on it and everything they do. I also don't want people to gatekeep. I don't want gatekeeping on human services and who's supposed to play. That's rude.
Yes.
People. So my feeling is, no, we're not stepping on anyone's toes and we're giving due diligence and respect, absolutely credit where it's deserved. Nobody does it like them, according to me, but also there's room for more people to join in other ways. That's my personal feeling.
Well, they're also getting back, on a little somewhat side note, there are quite a few people who also don't like a lot of the people who were in the alliance. And to get back to the root of it, the alliance is not an advocacy group.
Yeah, that's true too. I think, like I said, different ways for different strokes for different folks, right? Like if you want to do it in a different way, we can be cohesive and collective and all work and collaborate together without needing approval specifically from one another, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
I agree, and I think they're still trying to figure out exactly who they are and what they want to do. And
Sure.
they're having that conversation right now. And really, I've been a member too, and for 4 years now, and it's just a membership-based group that reports to each other.
Yep.
And shares information and great opportunities to collaborate with each other and that sort of thing.
And I love it. And I love it. It's
It
given
is
me
good,
such,
but
yeah, I love it.
yeah.
It's given me such a foundation to learn what my community does. But I also don't, like I said, I don't believe in gatekeeping where
Yeah.
you're not in the scope of it, you don't get to know about it. That's why we're having a lot of communication issues. Why wouldn't you want another place that's a little different in a little way, that's more community based to get others involved? Right? Like, that's just where I'm coming
Right.
from. Also, I'm gonna say, when Christy Vendetti was here, amazing. Annette Frank, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great
Favor, amazing. So that proves the point. You can
Yeah.
be separate and then you can collaborate and do even more good, because then everyone's on the same page. However, the people that are speaking with that feedback, I believe, should have then been on the committee.
Should have been what, Ari?
Been on this committee. They should have been in the Envision.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm very happy that they are not.
Boy.
And I know that
Okay.
Christy is too. And as I said, they are, well, like you said, they're gay. Sometimes agencies tend to struggle to live their purpose when it's been outlived. They don't want
I
to
don't know about all
dissolve.
that. I don't know about all that. I just don't want people gatekeeping. I don't want people saying,
Yeah.
we got to do it this way or no way. I don't like that.
Yes, and I don't like people taking credit where credit is not due. And they are not an advocacy group.
Okay.
I think many of them are excellent and contribute so much. But the
Absolutely.
bottom line for me is that they are not an advocacy group and they don't belong with this.
Okay, and Tom, how are you feeling?
I said, this is not my world. I'm learning a lot by listening.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's very interesting to know how helpful and wonderful they are, but also not everybody gets to be within the Peak to Peak Alliance or Housing and Human Services Alliance, and you got to make room for more. And I think that's what this is. It's room for more.
Mhm.
My agency's funded through Boulder, right? Am I designated up here? Absolutely. Funding come through here in the mountains? Absolutely. But you remember where your roots are. And for me, I understand that if I was working in Boulder, I wouldn't really have much of an in into this community. Very gate kept.
I think that's why we came here.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree. So
Yeah.
Miranda, does that kind of answer the question, or did I really scoot around that question?
Oh, no. I think that's totally, again, it's feedback. It's you kind of all can do with it what you please. It's helpful to hear what you say. And so if anyone comes back to me and asks why we didn't do that, we can just, my response will be that this is an open document that is much larger than just that organization, and that was the kind of the purpose of April, was to get their feedback in that way. And
I'm wondering,
people can attend the board meeting when this is presented and provide additional feedback there if they want to.
yeah, I'm wondering about that. If people were stepping on toes, or if we're just not, if we weren't in the wheelhouse of understanding what they do, and then they don't understand what we're getting at. Again, not communicating well.
The feedback, you'll see, because a couple of people signed it. One came during the meeting, the other came from Dennis. And so, again, I'm happy to follow up with them directly and just let them share with them where we landed, but that it's not necessarily at a place. We're really not at a place to accept more feedback. It's not that we don't care what people say, but we have to eventually cut it off so we can move forward.
Right.
So,
I want more people to be able to join. I want more people to feel that they're involved too. That's where I'm coming from.
There have been ample opportunities. Thanks, Miranda.
Oh,
one thing
definitely,
I
yes.
keep up, and this is more of a strategic, again, it's more kind of diving into the roots, but food for thought as we move forward, is that there was a recommendation of creating, a health and human services or social services advisory board under town, and that serves, that can help to how we spend occupational funds, and can be more of a driving force. I think you're going to run into that challenge that there will feel like there's a competition, but there is something
Yes.
to be said or thought of having a board-specific advisory board, a town-specific advisory
I
board.
think that would be wonderful. However, it needs to be open to qualified community people, not people who are part of like, oh, well, I'm part of this group and I'm part of that group. Therefore, I've earned my place.
Well,
It
you got to be
needs
careful of that, Natasha. It's a very small town, and everybody does a
I
little bit
know.
everywhere.
Yeah, I know.
It's
However,
hard.
it needs to be,
Unbiased.
it needs to be unbiased and not, unbiased, not skewed towards certain groups.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Agreed. That I think that could come later. So this is where you land. I'm going to email this to you all. So in case between now and Friday, there's like thoughts that you have, you can then kind of engage with one another via email if there's any other changes. But otherwise, I would say this is our final document that will go before the Board of Trustees on the 18th.
But you'll
Beautiful.
be giving
Straight
us,
to the
you'll be
point.
sending us a clean copy.
I'm just going to send this as okay. I'm just going to copy and paste it into an email. And I guess let me take us back a little bit. We do have a full committee Envision meeting next Tuesday where we'll review this as a full group before it goes before the Board of Trustees.
Okay.
How much
So
time
there's still
are we
another
allocating for that meeting?
2 hours. And really, it's not a time to reinvent the wheel and start over again. It's just more of like, do we have spelling mistakes? Are there grammatical errors? How do we clean this up to make it look good?
Quick review.
We'll be reformatting it so that it's consistent across the board. So yeah, just a real quick review. It's not a time to discuss in detail any of the goals. That's what this is.
You're driving the ship well, Miranda. Thank you.
Honestly.
Forward, getting to the next level. I appreciate you all though. This was fast and efficient, and we like that.
This was crisp.
Yes.
We are Chris. We are crispy. I love it. Yeah. Thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you for everything. Honestly, you have amazing work here.
I'm just amazed that you keep all of this straight.
Trying to keep us organized.
There were sessions before this.
Peter to help make the website clean, and it's nice. I don't have to do everything. So thanks to Peter too.
Great hire.
Yeah,
see ya.
Best. Okay, if there's nothing else, then that's it.
Oh, Miranda?
Yep.
Just one last point of clarification, because it kind of, oh shit, my fire went out. So you're going to make a clean copy of this and then email it to us.
Mm-hmm.
Doing it
Okay. Oh, okay. Wow, you're so on top of
before
it.
the meeting is done here.
Okay,
Yeah, so
great.
if anything comes up, but I guess I would just caution you not to get too detailed in your back and forth emails. Really it's just more if there's like a slight little change, that's what you'd want to do in an email discussion. Any further communication needs to be a publicly noticed meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Have
everybody.
a great night, guys.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.